Lorena and her husband lived in one of the most remote places of the city that exist in Colombia, with their 2-year-old daughter. Life had put them in that place since all opportunities had been denied in the nearest towns, and as they had nowhere to live, they decided to enter the jungle and look for a place in which they could build their home with their own hands and using what nature offered them. Their house was a small wooden construction that had taken them a long time to build, because they were not used to the countryside. However, they soon fell in love with that small land hidden from the world, because little by little it had been becoming a natural paradise for both of them. Thanks to their work, they had also learned to sew and obtain the resources to feed themselves. Thanks to nature, they hunted small animals in the bush and grew vegetables and fruits on their plot. Everything seemed to be going well for both of them, although from time to time they missed communicating with other people and accessing the goods that the city offered, such as sometimes going to a restaurant and being served, or buying clothes. They had already been settled there for 2 years when they realized that their clothing was becoming increasingly scarce. For a few weeks, they were tempted to make their clothes from plants and cover only the essentials, remembering their indigenous heritage, but soon they realized that they needed to cover themselves better, and that they were not able to hunt large animals to obtain their skin. They understood that they had to schedule a visit to the city. They had no money, but they believed they could sell fruits and vegetables once they arrived and could buy the clothes and blankets they needed. They left in the early morning, very loaded, and walked the way back to civilization. They found everything different in their path, but they managed to locate themselves from everything they saw. What they were most surprised was a small river that, although they could cross it on foot without problems, it wasn't there before, and they didn't know how it had formed. When they arrived in the city, they felt intimidated. They had been living alone for too long. But soon they began to offer their products on the street. Even though the sale took them longer than expected, they managed to sell everything, and then they bought what they needed. But the afternoon came, and they knew that if they were starting the way back at that time, the night would surprise them halfway, so they had to stay. Lorena remembered the only friend she had there long ago, and they went to her house. When they arrived, the woman was very surprised to see them again. She believed that they had died. However, it would have been better for them to spend the night under a bridge, because although the woman did not do it with bad intention, the following days she told the story of Lorena and her husband to everyone who crossed her, and then people began to turn their eyes to that place that had always been in oblivion. What most caught the attention of everyone who heard the story was that river they talked about. In the town, the water was scarce, and they all were surprised that a few hours away there was a place with water that they could take advantage of. In the following 2 years, and without Lorena and her husband being aware in their house, in the forest, heavy machinery passed near the river. They expanded their channel, and in a few months the small river became a large and mighty one. Yes, Lorraine and her husband had been cut off from the people without knowing it, because the river was already too wide and deep to cross it swimming without danger, but only a year later they would discover it. By that time, Lorena had had a daughter. The first year of life for the little girl had not been easy, because they did not have enough resources to attend to her, but Lorena managed to feed her enough. However, days after the girl turned 2, she got sick in a way that filled her parents with terror. She suffered from high fevers and vomiting and did not want to eat anything. They tried with all the plants and all the natural remedies they knew, but nothing worked for them, and it was then that Lorena desperately decided to go to the village to seek help. Her husband wanted to take on the task at first, but she had a better sense of location and knew that she would not get lost even if her surroundings had changed again in recent years. But Lorena never imagined that the small river that one day she crossed on foot without problems had now become a mighty river that caused her fear. But her fear was put before the need to bring medicine to her daughter. She had again a bundle of fruits and vegetables to sell, but she realized that she could not cross it with the load. And then she trusted that when arriving in the city, her friend would do the charity to help her, buying the medicines she needed for the girl. However, she tied the load to a rope, tied it to her waist, and undertook the crossing of the river. At first, it seemed that she could cross it without significant problems, but when she was halfway there, the current dragged the load with more force than Lorena had, moving several meters down. Lorena saw how something was approaching her in a hurry. She could not see well and feared the worst. They were in the jungle, and it could well be a crocodile. But to her surprise and tranquility, it was actually a dog. The animal had heard the unusual agitation in the water, and seeing the human in trouble, made it jump without hesitation to help her. Lorena knew that she had to untie herself as soon as possible, and so she did. She lost the goods, but it was preferable to losing her life. The effort had left her exhausted, and that noble dog had arrived there like an angel to save her life, because she did not feel she had the strength to swim to the riverside. With the help of the animal, she could get to safety. While everything happened, a couple watched them with anguish from the riverside. They were the owners of the dog and a small house they had built near the river, inspired by the story they had heard from Lorena and her husband. When they learned that the woman their dog had rescued was the woman from the story, they immediately praised her for the strength they had had to leave everything they knew and enter the jungle to start from scratch. It took a lot of courage to do something like this, but Lorena only had one thing in mind and told them that she urgently needed medicines for her doctor. The couple lent her a donkey they had, and so she could finally reach the village. Just as she expected, her friend helped her, and then she started the way back with the medicines. However, again she found herself with the problem of the river, because she had to cross it back, and the couple who lived there had just begun to build a canoe. With the help of ties and leaning again on the dog, Lorena crossed. Once on the other side, she hugged that dog and thanked the dog for saving her, and also waved at the couple from there, crying after overcoming such traumatic moments. She arrived at her house just in time before it was too late for her daughter. A couple of days later, the girl was already recovered. Since then, Lorena, her husband, and the couple on the other side of the river became good friends and visited each other frequently, and never had to miss the city again. They continued their country life and lived happily there for many more years. If you liked this story, leave your like and share it with your friends and family, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time!